and I am so excited to have here in IIU the amazing Dr. Srividhya Sukumar. I have to say that I've had many opportunities to work with her before, and I'm always so impressed about the topics and the work that she does. Today, Dr. Srividhya, this is your home. I was just bringing you live, and I just wanted to welcome you because this is literally your home. So please go ahead. The virtual podium is yours, and I will be here if you need.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Virginia. And it's always a pleasure being there with IIU. And thanks for all the good opportunities, as you rightly mentioned. I'm there with IIU right from its inception. So we have just traveled a long way, and definitely a long way to go ahead too. So definitely, as everyone would know, IIU is world's first international internship university with inspiring, inventing, igniting young minds, and has been consistently doing it. And we all know it much better than anyone as a part of IIU. Sincere thanks to IIU as well, and Dr. Piyush Pandit sir, and we all know. So I'll go ahead with that. Definitely. Thanks for the great opportunity, and then we will definitely catch up. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Virginia. Thanks for the brilliant support. And your always smiling face. I can never forget this face. Definitely. It gives so much of motivation and inspiration to all of us. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I am going to be here if you need me, but please go ahead. I think that our topic today is really amazing, and I don't think we've really covered it before. So unless you have done it, but I think that is something that we definitely all have to really talk about, the Neuro Diversity movement. And you know what it is, many people will not understand, and I think that it's really good that we take the time to come together to really talk about it. And we know that neurodiversity is not just a concept, it's a profound recognition that variations in the human brain do exist, right? So I'm not going to continue, but I wanted to say I always applaud you because you bring the most challenging topics and the most interesting, but most importantly, those that really affect humans, right? And when you speak about climate change, when you speak about politics, when you think about government, when you think about women empowerment, this is all human rights. So I just want to commend you and the work that you do. So thank you and welcome to IIU.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Virginia. Well, as I would like to pick it up from where Dr. Virginia has left. What is this neurodiversity? Is it something related to, definitely as it related to brain or diversity with nerves and everything? Definitely, it's a very complex concept as such, and the idea itself is so abstract. So let's just try to sort it out and make it as simple as people will be able to understand it. That's the main initiative of this. So this neurodiversity paradigm is a framework. It's a beautiful framework for understanding the human brain function, which has nothing but the neurons that consist of the neuron. That's why the term neurodiversity, how they are diversified, how they are diversified in the functions, in the nature, in the work they deliver, everything as such, that considers the diversity with the sensory processing of the functions which are happening in terms of motor abilities, social comfort, because motor abilities which are happening with the stimuli, and what's the response which is coming as a social comfort, that goes through the cognition of the work with the focus of the neurobiological differences that exist, that coexist rather. So definitely, when you have acceptance, when you give a good response, there is always, it's not be positive always, there's always a negative response as well. So this diversity, exactly, the whole concept or the whole abstracting of diversity falls into the spectrum of neurocognitive differences which happens within the brain, and that activates our action, our thought process, everything. So when it is so, how to act? First act and then how to react. So this is what we are going to see. So the term neurodivergent describes the people, us, whose brain differences affect how their brain works. This means they have different strengths and challenges. Obviously, not everybody is same. It's just one size fits all is a different theory. It's an old theory. It doesn't exist anymore. So we have different strengths and challenges from the people, from our existence, exactly, from where we belong to. Our family could be one, we ourselves could be one, our environment, our surrounded, our close knit could be one, and then the other environment, the community will be another. When it comes to the community, it comes to the whole thing, district, state, district, and then it goes on and on. So we have different strengths within us, and thereby different challenges which coexist in this coexistence. But how to handle this with this brain, with those differences which are happening within ourselves, taking it forward to others in the environment. So the possible differences include medical disorders, which is quite obvious, which people all know about it, learning disabilities and other conditions. Apart from this, there are certain things which we need to look into. That's what we are going to see. So the possible things between the, could be even the memory perception of the person, or being able to paint a picture mentally and respond to it. That is, comes to the understanding part of it. When it comes to the understanding part of it, with the visual perception, I will be a 3D person, I will be a 2D person, I will be just a normal person. So however we look at things, how we do that, and how we understand this complexity of understanding within our small brain, this small brain, and how to react to the situation. That's what is the whole concept of neurodiversity is there. But accepting, basically in one tagline, if you want me to divide this, is accepting differences, making a very inclusive society that will promote social justice. We are going to appreciate people, accept them as we are, as they are, and screen. So this is what the whole topic is all about. And we are not talking about just as the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but it is a fire to be kindled. So that's what we are talking about. We are going to talk about through and through. And moving ahead, if we are talking about this, then what does this whole science sum it up through? It is about cognitive science. The cognitive science is nothing but the brain function, the function of the brain that will really coordinate all these things, which is otherwise called as I think, therefore I am here. That's what the whole cognitive science is all about. So allow me to share how does it affect, how does the whole concept affect the functionalities of the brain. So this is a wonderful video. I should be able to play the video, I think. If not, I will have to, I didn't activate the video part, the sound part of it when I started sharing. So I will do that now and then come to the video so that you get the sound of the video as well.
In 1994, Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto proved something extraordinary. Your words physically change the world around you. Dr. Emoto had students speak negative words like, I hate you, and you're a failure, to one set of water bottles. Another set was treated with kind, loving words like, I love you, and thank you. After freezing the water and viewing it under a microscope, the results were astonishing. The water exposed to negativity formed chaotic, distorted patterns. Meanwhile, the water blessed with positivity crystallized into breathtaking, harmonious shapes. Here's the mind-blowing part. Over 70% of your body is water. That means every word you speak creates a ripple effect in your cells, shaping your energy, health, and even your reality. Speak love, speak gratitude, speak power into your life. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. If you're not...
So this is what is the whole thing that we're talking about. If you want me to reflect on exactly what is it about, what is that we are going to go about it, go further, is that the study of cognitive sciences in simple words. The world we have created is a process of our thinking, our own thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. In Hindu mythology, it is said as Aham Brahmasmi. what you think, that you become. That's what Albert Einstein said in this world. The world we have created is a process of our own thinking. And if you want to bring changes in the society, the change has to happen within you. So the essence of the independent mind lies in not what it thinks, but how it thinks. So that's what is the thing. The whole thinking process. The mind is just not a vessel to be filled with. It should be a fire to be kindled. So all these are related to the thought process, which needs to have that trigger. The trigger is the stimuli and the action is the response that we are talking about. So for every action, as we all know, the great law, there is always an equal and opposite reaction. So when it comes to this cognitive sciences, which we're talking about, it's a study of the human mind and the brain, focusing on how the mind represents and manipulates the knowledge and how the mental representations and processes are realized inside the brain. So that's what is the thing. And what comes to the brain, that comes in the action, as we all know. So we have seen the video. So coming back to the video, relating it to this concept of the video, Dr. Emoto is a Japanese researcher who found that water responds to the human emotions and thoughts and intentions by changing its molecular structure. His experiments involved exposing water to different stimuli such as words, music, emotions, and then freezing it to absorb the resulting as ice crystals. And you won't believe, the findings were remarkable as such. So what were the findings is that there were positive stimuli when water was exposed to the positive words like love, thank you, gratitude, and formed symmetrical, intricate, aesthetically, that is pleasing crystals. And negative stimuli was that water exposed to negative words like hate, anger, produced chaotic, fragmented, malformed crystals. Likewise, this was the actual thing which was proved by him. So, while his findings were not universally accepted due to concerns about the experimental designs and product responsibility, they have inspired many to explore the potential impact of thoughts and emotions on reality. So moving ahead, to go more into the detail, some potential connections of all these are related to the neuroscience. When it comes to the neuroscience, there are 4 different categories that will come to us. That is neuroplasticity, that the brain's ability to adapt and change in response to the experiences and emotions that may be reflected in changes that we have seen in the water molecular structure as well, with the emotional regulations that, as per the findings of Dr. Emoto, suggested that emotions can have a tangible impact on the physical world, which may be related to the brain's emotional regulation processes. And with the consciousness and the intention, Dr. Emoto's work implies that human consciousness and the intention can influence the physical world, which raises to the questions about the relationship between the brain and the consciousness and the reality. Overall, Dr. Emoto's research encourages us to consider the potential effects of the thoughts, words, and emotions on the world and the world around us, especially with the focus of our emotional well-being. So how it acts, that we are going to see how the neurons work, how it works inside the brain, how these changes are happening. When we hear what happens, how it goes, and how the changes are actually happening, which is getting depicted in our actions. So that's what is the consciousness and the intention that is more related to, which implies the human consciousness and intention can influence the physical world, that is the 5 sense organs and the physical body, and which will raise questions about the relationship between the brain, consciousness, and the reality, the physical reality. Overall, Dr. Emoto's research work encourages us to consider the potential effects on the thoughts, words, and emotions on the world around us for our own well-being and also others' well-being. So that is what is the whole thing that we are going to talk about. So moving ahead, now the key concepts. What are the key concepts behind the whole thing is emotional processing. How does the brain actually act? It comes under the header of emotional processing, how it happens, and how this emotional processing is getting transmitted with the neurotransmitters that tricks us as different hormones or the different hormones which are being secreted, and how does it really affect the brain regions and how it affects the actions as well. So when we go in detail about this actually, so the emotions, on the whole, it is called as a neuroscience, and the study of these emotions and the neuroscience is definitely a fascinating field that explores the complex relationship between the brain, emotion, and the behavior. So when it comes to the emotional processing, the brain's ability to process and respond to the emotional stimuli, that is what is emotional processing all about. When it comes to the neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers like all those hormones of dopamine, serotonin, or whichever way that you're going to call it as, that play a very crucial role in the emotional regulation that brings the brain regions, structures like amygdala. That is, these are things which are definitely present in the brain, but all the biological people definitely they will be knowing about it. Those who are studying human body will know about it. But for us, on the whole, let's take brain as a whole structure, which involves, and these are the areas of the brain which are responsible for bringing the reactions, our reactive actions with the emotional processing and the regulation processes which are involved therein. Now, where does this really go to? Is we have to understand a little bit about the brain and its domains. So, let's go back to little bit science and learn little bit science about our brain as well. Professor Benjamin Bloom proposed his taxonomy for learning in 1956 and divided the education objectives into 3 domains that are included as cognitive, which is mental, affective domain, which relates to the emotional feelings and the attitudes, and it involves our feelings of emotions and how we deal emotionally with values of appreciation, enthusiasm, motivation, and the attitudes, etc. And the psychomotor for the physical ability, skills that use the psychomotor skills, coordination with the physical movement. This many of us would be knowing, especially when you're in the field of education as well. As you understand your students much better, many of you would be knowing about 3 different domains. So when we go in detail about this cognitive domain, the cognitive domain is an interdisciplinary field of those researchers, those who study about psychology, neuroscience, linguistics, philosophy, computer science, anthropology, who seeks to understand the mind, considering the findings that are strong and clear enough to merit the classroom application, thereby creating an advantage for the learner's benefit. This could actually be some areas where we can see this happening is that storage, memory performance, etc. And all these are processes with a more creative kind of thing which is going on. So, when did this started? How we started talking about these domains and when all these things started is that the discovery down the era where it all started, take a look back. So, this is about a brief history. Since the beginning of time, man has always tried to understand the human brain. But some of the earlier writers wondered how it works actually. Whatever things, sometimes we talk about premonition, we talk about reading one's mind. How does it really act? So it all started with 1,800 years ago, since science of psychology began. And at this time, the scientists adopted the theory of behaviorism, an idea of certain behaviors where program would occur in the biological reaction to affect the stimuli. So that's where the study of psychology became predominant in 70s more than in 60s. And who started this? Is the great scientist who is behind the psychological laboratory. In 1989, Milman Wundt founded this psychological laboratory in Germany. And then after him, which was followed with Sigmund Freud, a short while, he conducted the case studies to support the previous theories which were existing. So moving ahead with all these things, in 1950, a cognitive revolution began where many researchers developed mind-based theories based on computational procedures and complex representation that came up with the derivations of the cognitive sciences. So what does this cognitive science means exactly? It was borrowed from Latin, which is known as concerned with knowing. The actual meaning of cognitiveness is concerned with the knowing, getting to know, acquiring knowledge, or definitely given as the definitions for this cognition. So when it comes to the cognition, exactly it is the act of thinking, perceiving, understanding. In simple words, what you see, you receive. When you receive, you perceive it in your brain. When you perceive it, you start thinking about it, and so that you believe that. When you believe, you start achieving it. So this is the process that goes. So seeing is believing is derived from there. So the word cognition is often used for formal writing about learning and thinking, etc. It happens to exactly to complete the crossword puzzle, remember math questions, etc., etc., etc. All these activities can be listed for cognition. Even learning a new language also comes under this cognitive ability of a person. So the cognitive skills and the knowledge involve acquiring factual information, often knowledge-based information, thereby with the field of study of human perception, thinking, and learning. So when it going further in this, the simple example is to remember in our daily use, our daily life is that how do we remember a phone number, how do we remember a human face, how do you remember an address, all these things get registered. As I told you before, it comes majorly, it affects the memory part of it. So the cognitive science is the interdisciplinary scientific study of the human mind, processing the input from the linguistic part of it, psychological, neurological, philosophical, computer science, artificial, anthropology, all these study of science comes under the cognitive study. So it examines the nature and the task and functions of the cognition to perform a task, to understand it and relate it, and then perform a task. And that's how this really works. So moving ahead, the cognitive science theories or something like this, the formal logic, rules, concept, analogies, images, connectionism, theoretical neuroscience, deep learning, etc. All these theories form the exponential pattern of the cognitive science theory. For example, in case of concept, that we have the set of concept that has to be established in the part of hierarchy or associations or structures. All these theories are represented in the cognitive science. So the cognitive science methods are often used of computational modeling, theorizing, understanding the mind and the intelligence, and this will also involve experimentation projects with human subjects. For example, people working in the laboratory, science laboratories, or even AI laboratories, whichever laboratories where actually the physical action is required in correlation with the mind. So all these things with the reasoning abilities and also with the comprehension capacity, all these things works under the cognitive science methods. One famous example of cognitive experiment is the Stroop test that participants are shown words on the screen in range of different colors, and they say what color the word is. So this is how it works. So it measures the logical thought and access, how quickly the brain suffers the stress, and when it comes to the answers goes wrong. And that really affects the human brain and affects us the emotion as well. That's where if everything goes on fine, everybody is happy. But when something goes wrong somewhere, then only the emotional part of it, the intelligent quotient doesn't balance with the emotional quotient of the person. So that comes this structure of neurodiversity and how to handle the situations really help it out. So outlining the principles of the future of the teaching and learning assessment processes. So is that which are the ages that it can be worked on, it should be worked on is that starting from the early years. From the early years with the primary, and then from the schooling stage, it has to go on step by step such that the evolution process takes place as a theory, and also with the high qualified technology and the teaching learning materials adapted by the person, and also the approaches are adapted by the learner without any problems as such. They are able to, it's so gradual, it goes as a gradual stream. So when it comes to that, the examples of the cognitive science evidence can be used in the education as well. Many studies have investigated the potential for the evidence from cognitive science to inform teaching and learning. So some of the most interesting usefulness is that the retrieval practice in the School of Sciences and the use of cognitive science as improving mathematics and teaching and learning. This is what is normally happening in the school stage, is that they relate cognitive science to exactly English, math and science. That's why if you see SAT examination, whichever examination, university or whichever competitive examinations, they checked only these three subjects, math, English and science. So this is what has been hugely accepted by people, and so this is what is happening. But it is not so actually. That's what we are going to see further. How we take a look at the few examples to see what benefits from, also what can happen in theory of overshadows the evidences. By using the retrieval practice to enhance the science learning, from the cognitive sciences commonly challenged many people with elaborate study, it's better than learning of the retrieval practice. So the elaborate study methods requires learners to organize a new material, distinguish the unique feature of terms and concepts in source of future retrieval. Now, if you see actually in our school history or the present scenario of the education system, the theory is given as a practical knowledge and it has been tested in terms of assessment. Whereas in the new era that we're talking about, we are not giving the theory beforehand. Theory is for them to understand beforehand, the before knowledge, the prior learning, and then the exact theory part of it is being experimented in the school or in the classroom or at the learning level, is being experimented to understand exactly where they are heading to, how they are able to understand. Unlearn, relearn definitely happens at this stage. Exactly what they have understood is right or wrong, or what the new they're trying to adopt. And with this, they are able to arrive at drawing a concept map on their own. So it demands and it involves an experiential learning for the learners to develop the concept map on their own, to understand the given situation, make connections between the concept, the previous concept and the new concept that they're learning, and use this as a reference material for the application point of it. As we all know, the famous Bloom's taxonomy, knowledge, understanding, then application, then comes synthesis point of it. So with all these things, the cognitive science definitely helps the learners to understand it from the memory, relating the past with the present and taking it to the future with the case of a question. In case, what are questions which really comes as that with the the retrieval practice is that the 3 R's: recall from the past, recognize and accept it, and relearn it to understand it, to go on for the further mode of research and reconstructing the knowledge which is there. So what is expected from the child's point of view is the experiential knowledge to be converted as an synthesis and for application method. So using the cognitive science evidence to improve the teaching learning in mathematics, certain examples have already been demonstrated, have been proved in the history. And to conclude, this cognitive science is a test hypothesis which is controlled with experiments, where educators and cognitive scientists translate findings into potential teaching practices, which they just form it as lesson plans or the new modem of teaching or the pedagogy that we're talking. With the educators and cognitive sciences, then with the potential teaching practices, develop the education context, and the policymakers and teachers apply in the teaching practices, which is being successful in total. So this is how the high-level process of applying cognitive sciences to teaching practice has been established so far. So what is this cognition is all about? When we talk about cognition, cognitive science, how it relates to this is the process that we have seen. Now we are going to see how it really starts working as a mental process for people. So the cognition, it comes under the word cognition. The cognition is a simply defined mental processes and abilities by which people engage on daily basis, such as memory, learning problem, evaluation, etc., reasoning, decision making, etc. So generate a new knowledge through mental processes helps to know the knowledge better in the daily life. From the very daily life application, they can relate it to that. Say, for example, even tidying up the bed really comes as a mental cognition ability. So the education psychologists were especially interested in studying the cognitive processes of the individuals, their growth and development of the children. So what it registers, the mind tried to produce it. So what it registers has to be given the key importance to go further. So the stages of cognitive development of children from birth to adulthood. These are the things which are very key things that we have to always keep in mind, taken into consideration. J.N. Piaget is specifically important in this sphere since he presented the stages of cognitive development of children from the birth to adulthood. The sensory motor stage starts from birth to 2 years, The pre-operational stage that we're talking about, early years, will start from 2 to 7 years. So this early years is actually the very key stage for the students, children as students, to start learning new things, for acquiring new things. So the concrete operational stage, which comes, what they learn, they'll start applying all these things. The concrete operational stage will come is from 7 years to 11 years. This is actually the adolescent, the pre-adolescent age that we're talking about. Finally, the operation stage is adolescent to the adulthood. So this map is very, very key, important for as educators. We have to remember and we have to start working on it. So the cognition is defined as a mental action or the process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through the thought and experiences. So what are the cognitive skills that one will develop is the perception, that is visual perception and auditory perception, and attention. When it comes to the focus attention, focused attention, sustained attention, divided attention. When it comes to the memory, short-term memory, working memory, long-term memory, visual memory, auditory memory. And when it comes to reasoning, logical reasoning, that is deductive listening, inductive reasoning. So all these cognitive skills that the students or the learners develop. So the different types of cognitive processes that include, when they develop, what are the different processes that include, that involve in that is their attention. The basic thing is attention, where the child is paying attention with the focus, with the stimuli of the environment, to the stimuli of the environment, paying attention. So looking at something, or then the language perception, the language development and the cognitive processes also involve the ability to understand and express the thoughts that are spoken and written words. This allows the communicate to communicate with others in a very important role in thought. So whatever comes into the mind, the thought process is being expressed. It's a stage of development of expression. So when it comes to that, the third stage is the learning. The learning requires talking about new things, synthesizing information, understanding it, integrating with the previous knowledge as we have seen in the past, relating it to the present and understanding the future part of it, the future knowledge, whatever thing that they are trying to understand. Then comes when you understand something, when you have seen something, when you try to understand, when you try to express it in your own visual perception or auditory perception, whichever way it is, and you have learned a new thing, what is then the next step is the memory, where it has to be stored in your memory with the cognitive process that allows the people to encode, store and retrieve information. And it has to, and it's a critical component of the learning process which are involved in it to retain about the world and their personal histories. And with the perception of the perception, then how do you perceive it? That's what is the thing. Perception is the cognitive process that allows the people to take the information through the senses and then utilize the information to respond and react to the world. And then the thought process is the essential part of the cognitive process to engage people in decision making, problem solving and higher reasoning. It's simple words, it's the application of the Bloom's taxonomy that we are seeing. So moving ahead with the Bloom's taxonomy expanded over here, the skills and acquired in the process of cognition is that the process of reasoning and the ability to draw conclusions, the ability to make inferences and with the relations, and also importance of the reading comprehension, etc. So this is how it actually works. So the retrieval process is a promising approach in improving the learning with three R's, that is recall, recognition and relearning. So moving ahead, how to improve this cognition factor to metacognition? Why do we need to improve that? Not every time, not every client or every person whom you meet is your client. Not every time it's going to be a success. There will be always failures that we need to work on, or there will be always somewhere that we need to go back and work again. So in that case, rather than cognition, what people have to go or to imbibe or in them is the metacognition. Metacognition is the art of thinking the other way. That is, in simple words, to take it in a very simple level, it's plan B. If this doesn't work, if the plan A doesn't work, how to go about, we have to go about with the plan B. That's what is the metacognition. For doing this, you need to train your brain to act in such a way such that it is accepting the facts that are being involved in it. So the cognitive factors in learning involve various cognitive components like attention, perception, executive function and reasoning. It also involves various strategies. Factors also involve monitoring and evaluation of the cognitive factors that are being involved. So what is this metacognition is about? The intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. So what we are thinking about, cognition is the intuitive mind that is a sacred gift that has been given to us already. The rational mind is go back and working on it to make things happen is what is called as metacognition. So thinking about our own thinking and changing the process of thinking is what is called as metacognition. We need to develop exactly to understand what are we doing, where are we doing, how are we doing, why do we need to do so? If it doesn't work, what is to be done next? So this comes under with the skill of self-regulation, and the students have to develop this skill of self-regulation, self-monitoring for their own comprehension, accessing their own abilities without the teacher's help. Such a self-regulated metacognitive abilities are the ultimate goals of learning for any kind of learner. So this is about thinking about their own process and the ability to regulate that thinking as the work goes on with the task. So the cognitive science is combined on the whole, if you actually see. So when it is so, it is the process of thinking, the whole process of thinking that we are talking about, and it is all summing up. So the whole cognitive science that we are talking is about neurology, psychology, anthropology, linguistics, and statistics. That's what we have seen in the whole so far. On the whole, it comes under the interdisciplinary instruction and learning processes. So in other words, it's called as cross-curricular links. So an example of interdisciplinary teaching is that food is studied in every discipline and can be served as a theme for the interdisciplinary instruction. The science teacher might teach the children about the life system that exists in the river, while the social studies teacher might help the students to research about the local history and the people who are used to use the river for food and transport. So this is how it really helps. It helps with the authentic lifelong life learning and with the increased critical thinking and problem solving with highly engaging activities, highlights the learner's strengths and weaknesses, and also open doors for students to develop and interpret on variety of context and which makes a student learning process with increased cognitive graphs which are being involved in it. So that's how it is. And to just conclude it there, it is an engaging and relevant pedagogy with the interdisciplinary instruction is engaging for students because it is structured in a way that the students learn beyond just the learning for the learning's sake. With interdisciplinary instruction, the students are assessed on effectiveness in which they create solutions to real-world problems. So when students are allowed to take the lead on the learning, by practicing critical thinking that extends beyond classroom walls, the students will naturally become more engaged in their learning. So why does interdisciplinary approach to learning lead to student access? Because it focuses on the student-centered learning, critical thinking analysis, and problem-solving abilities. So when they develop all these strategies of interdisciplinary teaching and learning, it really comes as a big solution for inclusiveness in the delivery. With the three major approaches of social sciences, multi-cross, transdisciplinary, contextualization, and conceptualizing and problem centering, thereby it paves way for a much more comprehensive learning which reflects the thinking, critical and the creative thinking to the optimum. So when it comes to that, what are we talking about? In a classroom of a heterogeneous mixture, which otherwise we called as the para-education system in the regular classroom, is a pros and cons of what we do with them. This is where the neuro diversity or the neurodiversity approaches really come in handy to have the classroom as strength-based strategies that will help the student to succeed in school and life. So this para-education in the regular classroom is about what to do with it. So we are all unique, we all know it. With everybody's experience the world differently, and these differences are inherent from our own neurology, from our own genes, from our own culture, the way our brains are wired to process and respond to information. This could be from the family heritage, this could be from the community heritage, this could be from the food that we eat. There are so many factors which contribute to that. But moving ahead, how will this neurodiversity, the process of thinking in our mind, is going to help the classroom situation. The neurodiversity refers to the diversity of the human brain and cognition. For instance, in sociability, learning, attention, mood, and other mental functions. So when it comes, the neurodiversity is a strength-based strategies that will help the students to succeed in the school and also in life. So this is a paradigm that shift in our thinking processes with metacognition and help to look at our brain diversity, biodiversity, and cultural diversity. We are going to think about our own self, that is our own brain diversity, with the biodiversity, with the people that we are living biologically, who are our parents and the other siblings, and with the cultural diversity with the community, how we adapt ourselves. This is what the whole science of neurodiversity is all about. Coined in the year 1990 by a journalist and autism advocate, this phenomenon was used to reflect the difficulties of people and face positive dimensions of our life. So this neurodiversity refers to many different types of neurological differences in people, like as we have termed within terms as dyslexia, dysprasia, prasia, and autism, ADHD, different codes that we have given, where people quite literally think differently. The idea is the focus on diversity rather than the disability. So we should stop calling all this as disabilities, whereas we should call them as diversified people, who are more determined to achieve something. So guided by the positive niche construction, practice differentiating this instruction for the neurodiverse brain, like components of positive niche construction is that strength awareness, positive role models, technological assistance with the universal design learning, strength-based learning strategies, positive career aspirations, and environmental modifications. So the strength-based learning strategies, when it comes to that, what are we talking about? Provide quiet areas and clearly defined space for their belongings, multisensory learning for teach skills, various ways to express themselves. It's not that one question, one answer. As I always say, one size doesn't fit all. There should be different ways of expressing themselves, as we all know about multiple intelligence factor. So the model appropriate behaviors through role model, video, etc. to make them understand this is how it should be. So the games and actives and practice social interaction. So with this rich network of human resources, both inside and outside the school, so the education can draw upon the support for the social and emotional lives of these neurodiverse people or the students to equip with sessions of AI and AR for students to explore with not to just compromise on the modern trends as well. So as such, if we are going to do that, this innovation learning strategy that was tailored to each student's unique strength will really help. So our strength-based classroom will be a place for students to sort out those labels come together, and rather, in other words, instead coming together as equals to form a new type of learning environment, such that there is no such thing as a normal student and there is no such thing as a very challenged student as well. So the modifications in the school environment also will help with the seamless inclusion, will also help the neurodiverse students in the regular classroom, and timely information to integrate the strategies and assessments for each category and the expectations. So building up, what is the main thing is that how we work on that to build up the character, how to bring the connection, how to bring the control, self-control of the people, how to develop competence, and how to derive at the conclusion. So these are the 7 different C's of resilience, which really comes into the developing the emotional quotient of the learner. So when it comes to that, the first thing is that building up competence. So when it comes to the building of competence is the feeling of knowing exactly what they know before and what they can handle well. As teachers, if we balance this very clearly, so developing the competence, helping the students with their individual strength, focusing on identifying the mistakes and the specific instance, empowering children to make their own decisions and make changes, recognizing their competence individually and avoiding comparison. thereby building in. When you do that competence, then the next stage will build up this child's confidence. The child will start believing in his own abilities, derived from the competence. So focusing on the best in the child, clearly expressing all best qualities such as fairness, integrity, persistence, and kindness, recognizing that he or she has done well, praising honestly about the specific achievements, and diffusing praise that may lack authenticity, and not pushing the child to take more on one task which he or she can realistically handle. So when we develop competence, when we develop confidence, third is that developing connection, developing close ties with the families and communities creates a solid sense of security for these children that helps them to have strong values, prevent alternative destructive paths to love and attention. You can help your child to connect with others by building the sense of physical safety and emotional safety within themselves and with the community. Also, expressions of emotions so that the child feels comfortable by looking into different times, and also conflict with the family, not to open conflict with the family or in terms of resolving solutions, rather by working on them in a more congenial way, such that creating a common area of the family can share, and also fostering healthy relationship that will reinforce positive messages. So when that is done, when the competence is built, when the confidence is built, when the character is built, when it is done totally, when the connection is established, you have built up that character for the child. So the children will definitely develop the set of morals and values to determine right or wrong, to demonstrate it, will try to demonstrate it with a caring attitude towards others, strengthen the child's character by how behaviors affect other people. They will try to understand, so there will be no tantrum, helping the child to recognize him or herself as a caring person, demonstrating the importance of community and the living being and the coexistence, encouraging the development of spirituality, avoiding racist and hateful comments of the stereotype. Thereby, our contribution is that the child need to realize that the world is a better place because they are in it. They are the one, if at all. So charity begins at home should be very much instilled in the child, such that if at all I need to want somebody to smile at me, I should do the smile first. So understanding this importance of the personal contribution serves as a source of purpose and motivation, that communicating to children how many people in the world do not have what they need, stressing the importance of serving others, modeling generosity, creating opportunities for each child to contribute in a specific way, really help. So when it goes, every area is not going to be a cakewalk. There are going to be difficulties, there are going to be different challenging situations. So in that, they build the concept of resilience in them by coping up. Learning to cope up effectively with stress help the child better to overcome challenges. With the coping lessons, modeling positive coping strategies, guiding the child to have positive and effective coping strategies, realizing them, telling him not to stop with the negative behavior, or understanding how many risks, behaviors and attempts to alleviate stress and pain, taking control of the situation. So the children who realize that they can take control of the situations will have the outcomes of the decision, or more likely to realize that they have bounced back. So how helping the child to understand the life events are not pure random, but the most things can happen the result of other individual choices and actions. So this is how the whole thought process is being controlled, and the learning that the discipline about teaching and punishing and controlling is not going to help. Discipline to help your child to understand how his actions can produce certain consequences. So if we build or work on these 7 C's of resilience, definitely this will really help the changing thinking pattern of the students, and definitely it will help them to come in close. In this together, it will benefit both. Starting with the Pygmalion in the classroom studies with the neurodiversity emphasis, looking at the students with special needs, primarily in terms of their gifts and abilities, uses the strength to help them to deal with the challenges. Thereby, this positive view pays off well in dividends as students rise to the expectations of the teachers, definitely. So, we need a growth paradigm to replace the deficit paradigm. So, this is what as educators or anyone we need to understand. We need a growth paradigm to replace the deficit paradigm. This is what the neurodiversity is all about. The pioneers of the special education, the first half of the 20th century, use the terms to describe neurodiverse individuals such as moron, feeble-minded, brain damage, educational handicap, and now it has reached on to the next level as such because The century has moved up from the 20th century to 21st century. So we are discovering people with neurodiversities possess gifts that often dovetail with cutting-edge careers, information technology, entrepreneurship, and science. So it's a special time. It's a time that special education use this knowledge to develop the students a form positive futures for themselves. So we can always keep our icon as Albert Einstein, who was supposed to be a neurodivergent, but still he has produced wonders to the world. So this neurodiversity supports the inclusion movement, that students with the special needs who are included in the classroom, regular classroom, will develop more positive views of themselves, form friendships. Neurotypical kids are better than to keep with the curriculum and learn important academic skills. Neurodiversity helps to support inclusion by convincing the regular classroom teaching, then adding neurodiverse students will actually make the classrooms better, because the student with the neurodiversities will bring positive qualities, attributes, and tips to make a positive contributions to the classroom. How to neurodiversity aligns with the school other programs and the policies on diversity virtually. All schools have policies that are promoting the value of diversity, both cultural diversity, honoring the students with different races, ethnic groups, gender roles, biodiversity to classrooms, units of biology-related disciplines, etc. The school districts can have departments of diversity to promote these policies. When we have these policies in place, this neurodiversity can be viewed as another positive contribution to this overarching commitment to diversity that should be integrated in both classroom lessons on diversity and education policies dedicated for promoting equity in learning, such that we just make our environment more inclusive. And neurodiversity helps to stimulate reforms in schools also. How it helps is that neurodiverse students are like canaries in the coal mine. The coal miners brought canaries down in the mines with them, and if there any air blockage developed, the canaries would fall off their perches to the lack of oxygen, and this would want the miners to get out. So the students with the special needs, through their difficulties with academics, behavior and attention, help to reform and refine the education system with the focus on inclusion that will ensure the education learners benefit. So this means more of hands-on learning, experiential learning project, and exploratory learning, art-based learning, brain-based learning. All these are definitely will come into our main photo of the universal design of learning, and learners with neurodiversities will benefit from all learners in the community. So definitely neurodiversity can change the world. We typically think of those individuals who have had the greater impact on the world as super individuals who have extraordinary powers to express. However, when you begin to look at these individuals and you see something entirely different, that these individuals both have strength and significant challenges. Some challenges that, to name a few, Sir Winston Churchill has conduct disorder and speech impediment. Henry Ford had learning disabilities. Thomas Alva Edison had clear signs of ADHD. Agatha Christie has dyslexia. Helen Keller has significant sensory impediments. The list goes on and on. So this should be reminders that the kids with special needs in our classroom may be the ones who are making the crucial discoveries of key decisions for our world in the coming decades. As the line goes, the imitation game, the story of the computer pioneer Alan Turing. Sometimes it is people no one can imagine anything of who do things no one can imagine. So that's what is the thing, the whole thing that we carry about. So our takeaway is that one more time, if you want me to repeat, I repeat. Sometimes it is the people no one can imagine anything of who do things no one can imagine. So on that note, the para-education of the regular classroom with what to do about them, definitely neurodiversity is the way that we can definitely do it. So on that note, when we relate education to life, the transdisciplinary learning, where the teaching moves beyond the teaching disciplines, but using common themes, topics issued thread by thread to different courses, will definitely help to have innovation, cooperation, and intentionality definitely being in vogue. So what's next for the cognitive approach is that the cognitive science was born out of the desire to understand who we are, why we think, how we behave. As we find out more natural pathways, response to stimuli and the conditions, and adapt to technologies such as artificial intelligence, cognitive sciences become more and more the way to understand the meaning of life. Thanks to the advances of the cognitive experimentation techniques, technology, scientists are getting closer and closer to discovering breakthroughs that cure the debilitating diseases of Parkinson's disease and designing computer algorithms. So to move ahead with 2020 future skills, the Institute of Future think tank emphasizes the need for the skills transdisciplinary develops that many of the global problems are just too complex to be solved by one specialized discipline. Think global warming and overpopulation. These are multi-faced problems which requires a transdisciplinary solutions. While throughout the 20th century, even the greatest specialization was encouraged. So moving ahead, they describe the desired future workers are needed to be speaking language of multiple discipline with in-depth understanding of one or more fields, but also to converse in the language of a broader range of discipline. To sum it up, transdisciplinarity is the approach that will provide the students with various skills and the complexity of the thought and the employees are seeking in the future workforce. So the well-developed transdisciplinary programs in the higher education will provide the students with unique opportunities to develop these skills which they will be facing in the future world. So the cognitive sciences integration into the interdisciplinary learning from different walks of life. Pursuing education is not a preparation for life, but life itself. On that note, we come to the end of today's session. I owe a sincere thanks to IIU for this wonderful opportunity and to Dr. Virginia and to Dr. Piyush Pandit and the whole team of IIU for this wonderful opportunity of coming together with you on this concept of neurodiversity. Thank you so much.